Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Council on Thursday, the 21st of March 2024. My name is Councillor Kevin Lagan, and I'm the Chairman of the Council. Members, we are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting, you're giving your consent to being recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Could I ask members to avoid approaching the top table just in case we interfere with some of the cameras. Thank you. Please note that the U2 live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of microphones. Therefore, can I ask that when invited to speak, you remember to turn on your microphone and turn it off when finished. Please reference a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda paper and keep your contributions as clear and concise if possible, please. Thank you. Item 2, apologies for absence. Clerk, may I have the apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies been received from Councillor Bell, Councillor Durham and Councillor Lay. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, very good. Councillor White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to also give apologies for Councillor Whiffen, please.
Thank you very much indeed. Do you get that, Tara? Councillor Whiffen sends apologies. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'd like to apologise in advance because I've just had recent knee surgery and I may have to get up and walk about, but please try to ignore me.
No, that's fine. Feel free to do whatever you need to do, and thanks for letting us know, and wish you a speedy recovery. Agenda item 3, which is the minutes, is recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of February 2024, found on pages 5 to 22, are approved as a true and accurate record. I so moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pratt seconded that, please. Members agree by assent? Thank you, members. Move on to agenda item 4. This is declarations of interest. This is to disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests relating to items of business on the agenda having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. I'd just also like to remind members that you need to disclose any such interest as they become aware throughout the meeting. Do we have any declarations, please? No declarations there, Tara. Thank you very much indeed. Agenda item 5. This is public questions. To receive questions from members of the public which prior notice has been given no later than 2 working days before the meeting. We have one question tonight from Mr. Stephen Rogers, who's attending the meeting to read out his question. So, Mr. Rogers, if you'd like to come to the table, please. One of the members will help you with the microphone. Generosity. Thank you. Members, thank you.
Good evening. Thank you very much for seeing me and answering my question. I assume everyone's seen the question and the answer. Is that correct? Okay. The question was raised a month ago and things have moved on since then. So instead of asking the question, I'd actually like to read the second paragraph of your answer, if that's okay. Mm-hmm. Slightly rephrased. And I think it would be something which might provide a solution. I think it should read, the Council will support proposals for all the current NHS community services to be retained in one building in Maldon. If your answer had said that, I believe it would possibly placate many people in Maldon and the NHS to provide a short-term solution to the impasse which we find during this public consultation period.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Leader, any comment?
I would love that to be a solution, Mr. Rogers, and officers have been in dialogue with the NHS. Obviously, we don't own St Peter's building, and I feel the same in terms of a lot of residents about what's happened to that building and how perhaps it hasn't been serviced and funded and looked after in the right way. And after 30 years, we find ourselves in this position. We are debating how we might work and the way we might work as a council with the NHS as part of the agenda meeting tonight. We are also working with Essex County Council. If the possibility arises and the funding arises, the council will do whatever it can to ensure that all those services are on one site. But there are lots of complications in terms of achieving that. And what my personal view is we need to ensure that the outpatient services at least remain in the Maldon district in a way that functions for residents. And that's what I said at the meeting in February at the Plume School. And all members and the council should work towards that, so that the residents of the district are supported to ensure that they can access the services in an efficient and effective way.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Thank you. With the questions being raised, the questions being answered, so we now need to move on. Thank you very much indeed. It's not a debate topic.
Mr. Chairman, may I be permitted to ask a question as a member?
You can, but you can go down in the member leaders' questions a bit later on down the agenda. Thank you, Councillor White. Okay, so Chairperson's announcements, which is agenda item number 6. Just a couple to raise. We had the Homes for Ukraine event, which was attended by Councillor Pratt and myself at the weekend, which was a really successful event, and I'd like just to commend the officers for the hard work and bringing that together. It was attended by other councillors as well. Councillor Driver was there, so it's nice to see. Also, some members know that I did the Chelmsford Half Marathon a couple of weeks ago to raise money for the David Randall Foundation, the chairman's chosen charity. I just want to say thank you to some members for enormous generosity and everybody who put their hand in their pocket to support this amazing local charity, so thank you. It nearly killed me, but it's all right. And the other thing is, again, as per normal, I'm suspending Rule 4.8/3, so there's no need to stand when addressing the chair. It's optional, members, please. And please, it's your chamber. Okay, some members speak more than other members. Everybody has a voice. Everybody's elected. So please, when you want to speak, put your hand up, okay? And you have a voice in this chamber. If you choose not to say it, you don't have to. But remember, it is your chamber and you have that right to speak. Before we move forward, I'd just like to ask Councillor Siddle, who has an announcement to make, please, and then Councillor Morley after that, please.
I do. I was going to do this later, but I might not make it to the end of the evening because I'm not feeling very well. Yeah, I'm not 100% in my. I seem to have this stomach thing.
You're probably going to do this and leave. Yeah.
But I will endeavour to stay as long as I can. In the last full council meeting, I made a remark to Councillor Stilts that undermined her professional standards and also undermined her as a person. And I would just like to apologise for any offence that I caused to Councillor Stilts. I've given her a written apology and an informal apology, and I hope, from my heart, that we can move on from this.
Thank you. Can you come back, Councillor Stilts?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to accept your apology.
Is your light on? Sorry.
Yeah, it is.
Sorry, I can't see. Thank
But
you.
I would have it would have been nice on the night maybe to have done the apology rather than me having to make a formal complaint. But thank you for your apology.
Thank you, members. Councillor Morley.
Thank you for this opportunity, Chairman. I'd like to thank you and all the members. Following a really bad injury, my wife had probably a month or so in hospital. Had a really nice surprise, chocolates and flowers. So from her, really, thank you very much.
No, you're more than welcome. We wish
Lovely
her.
surprise. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome, and continued recovery to her. And best
you.
wishes. Thank you, members. We move to agenda item 7, which is the minute book. This is to consider the recommendations coming forward from the committees detailed below. Please note the committees of the meeting are not enclosed as they hadn't been approved at that time. It's agenda item 7A, which is Performance Governance and Audit Committee from the 7th of March 2024, found on pages 25 to 62. I believe this is going to be introduced by Councillor Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I present the recommendations to Council from Performance Governance and Audit held on the 7th of March. The first one is about the independent person of the Performance Governance and Audit Committee. You've had the pages noted to you. It does pretty much what it says on the tin, and the recommendations are: little 1, that the principle of co-opting an independent person onto the Joint Audit and Governance Committee on a non-voting basis be approved, and little 2, that the person's specification attached at Appendix 1 be approved. Could I have a seconder, please?
Second to Councillor Stilts. Stamp. Sorry, Councillor Stilts. 2 people sitting next to us have their name begin with S when I'm reading. That's it. My apologies. That's that seconded. Members, do we agree that
Do we agree
recommendation?
that
Oh, sorry, Councillor Fluker. My apologies.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I just wondered if, when I looked at the job description, I call it, or the person specification, as it says here. When I looked at what's actually required of this post, I mean, are we actually confident that we can recruit into this role on a pro bono basis? Because it seems to me it's an extraordinary amount of work that needs to be done. My understanding is it is pro bono, but the independent person is paid handsomely for their service. And this is a very, very important role. Perhaps
I think
someone can answer, Chair.
I think Mr. Dawson, do you have any comment on it?
Thank you, Chair. Through you. I believe there is an allowance that is made for this role. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
100 M. Thank you. No, thank you. Councillor Howard.
Yeah, actually, my question on it, obviously, is who's going to make the decision on the independent person? Is it going to be the full committee or PG&A who's going to make this decision? I think, yes, am I right on the right? Whoever the committee is, obviously, would it be them that makes the decision?
I believe it would be the committee.
That would be my understanding because it's a decision made by that committee. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor.
Sorry, we need to vote on
Yeah,
that. Can we agree
that
that by assent, members?
By assent, members? Okay, that's agreed. Little one. Thank you.
Right, the second item is contract procedure rules extension. It's recommended that the contract procedure rules attached to Appendix 2 be extended for a further year. Could I have a seconder, please?
Seconded by Councillor Pratt.
Thank you.
Members agree that by assent? Agreed. Thank you very much indeed.
And the third item is Council Constitution Scheme of Delegation in Service Delivery. It's recommended that the redistribution of the powers currently delegated to the Director of Service Delivery to the Assistant Directors of Service Delivery, as proposed and shown at Appendix 3, be agreed, and that the consequential changes referred to in paragraphs 3.6 and 3.7 of the report, namely to the list of proper officer designations set out in the Scheme of Delegations, brackets, general provisions document in the Constitution, and the transfer of the delegated powers in relation to neighbourhood planning from the Director of Strategy and Resources to the relevant Assistant Director, i.e. planning and implementation, be agreed.
Thank you. Is this seconded? Thank you. Councillor Bounds seconded. Members, anybody wish to speak? Councillor Fluker.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm sure all members have read this, but page 54, Chairman, paragraph is shown as 9 on there, bullet 9. Chairman, I understand that Council is going to review enforcement, and I think members and everybody on the Council, officers as well, should be mindful of what bullet 9 says, Chairman. And that's the fact that officers should be consulting with ward members with regards to enforcement cases, both with the intent of bringing them forward and discounting them. And I think this has dropped off the radar in some ways. I know that the enforcement team are keen to reduce the number of enforcement cases, but this actual paragraph gives them a huge amount of scope to talk to members. And there was a time, Chairman, when the South East Area Planning Committee, which at the time had the most enforcement cases, used to meet specifically with the intent of reducing the number of cases. So, Chairman, I do hope that officers refer back to this, work with ward members, rather than going through some other protracted course. And I feel from looking at the list myself, there's a huge amount that can be removed from the list in accordance with number 9. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Very well, good point and well highlighted. Any other members wish to speak before we go to the vote? No. Okay, members. So we have the recommendation has been seconded. Is that agreed by assent? Agreed. Thank you, members. We move on now to minute book 7, which is B, the Strategy and Resources Committee. This is to consider the following recommendations coming forward from the enclosed committee. Please note the minutes are not enclosed. This was going to be presented by Councillor Durham as chairperson of the committee, but in his absence, it's Councillor Fittock to table the recommendations.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'm presenting the recommendations from the Strategy and Resources Committee of 14th of March 2024. The first is Asset Management Strategy, recommendation that the Asset Management Strategy 2024 to 2029 attached to Appendix 1 be approved. I so move.
Okay, I second that. Members agree by assent? Agree, thank you.
We also have the Business Continuity Strategy 2024 to 2026. It's recommended that the Council approves the adoption of the Maldon District Council Business Continuity Strategy 2024 to 26, the strategy attached at Appendix 2. Little 2, the delegated authority to be granted to the Director of Service Delivery in consultation with the Chairperson of Strategy Resources Committee to approve amendments to the policy during its lifetime. And little 3, that this strategy is presented for renewal to the Strategy Resources Committee on a 2-year cycle. I so move. Do I have a seconder?
Seconder for that motion. Those recommended. Councillor Thompson, thank you. Seconder. Members who agree by assent? Agreed. Thank you, members. Thank you, Councillor Fittock. Okay, we move on to agenda item 8, which is minutes of the meeting of the council. This is to note that since the last council up until Wednesday the 13th of March 2024 council agenda dispatch, the following committees have met to receive questions in accordance with council and committee procedure rule 6 bracket 2. This is the North West Area Planning Committee on the 7th of February, the South Eastern Planning Committee on the 14th of February, the Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting as the Crime and Disorder Committee on the 29th of February, Overview and Scrutiny Committee from the 5th of March, North West Area Planning Committee the 6th of March, Performance Governance and Audit Committee on the 7th of March, and District Planning Committee. There's a special meeting on the 12th of March. Do I agree that these are noted and agreed by assent? Agreed. Thank you, members. And we move to section 9, which is questions in accordance with procedural 6.3, of which notice has been given. Have we any questions? Have any notice?
No, Chairman, no questions.
That's very kind. Thank you very much indeed. We move on to agenda item 10, which is the Gambling Act 2005. It's a statement of gambling policy, which is found on pages 63 to 98 of your agenda pack. And this is to consider the report of the Director of Service Delivery, and this is going to be presented by Mr. Chapman. Good evening, Mr. Chapman. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair. So the report before you concerns the implementation of a revised statement of gambling policy, which is required by the Gambling Act 2005 for Maldon District Council. Members are hopefully aware that in November 23, officers sought permission from the Licensing Committee to undertake a consultation of a revised gambling policy. As advised at that time, our existing policy has expired and therefore needs urgent revision. However, in April 23, the government produced a white paper that sets out to modernise the regulation of gambling, and those changes are due to be implemented in the autumn of this year, and consequently we proposed a light touch review of the existing policy in order to bring it up to date rather than a full wide-scale revision, with the intention that we will then undertake a more detailed revision once the new government guidance has been published, the date of that review being scheduled for January 25. The Licensing Committee agreed the reviewed statement of gambling policy as a consultation draft and authorised us to undertake a limited 4-week consultation of the new policy. This consultation ran for 4 weeks, ending on the 8th of February 24. During the consultation process, the Council did not receive any comments from stakeholders, and so the policy being presented to you this evening has not been materially changed from that presented to the Licensing Committee. The report before you therefore recommends that the Council seek to approve the statement of gambling policy as presented in Appendix 1.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Chapman. So just go through that recommendation one more, that the one recommendation that the statement of gambling policy Appendix 1 be adopted. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Nick Spenceley has seconded that one. Members agreed by assent? Agreed, thank you. Just to make a comment on this report, it's a massive undertaking, piece of work. Really well done on it, because it makes a lot of sense. It's highly technical and really well put together, so thank you. Yeah, Councillor Bowen.
Can I just get clarification on the approval date on here on page 68, where it says approved by Council of Gambling Policy, approval date 21st of March 2025. Shouldn't that be 24?
It's probably a typo.
Okay.
Yeah, you get that checked and adjusted. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Yes, we will check and make sure those amendments are made.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen, for following that through. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We move on to agenda item 11, which is questions to the Leader of the Council in accordance with Procedure Rule 13M. Councillor Laybourne. Thank you. Sorry, Linda Hayward.
I've changed my name as well, haven't I?
I had today. Yeah, it's been a long day. My apologies.
I'll stand up for it. Right, just a question for the leader. I'd like to ask what is happening with obviously the main Maldon District Council offices. It's been suggested to bring other services within the building, but we still have obviously staff working within the building, and they're working from home, and I'm presuming they're contracted to work in the office. If we let out the space we have and decide to bring the staff back in as stated on their contracts, where will they work? Are we considering changing their contracts to allow them to work from home permanently? They surely should be decided before any decisions are made to put more services within this building. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Well, there are no plans for us to move out this building at all. And one of the things that I've said is that, and I've said it to the people we've been having discussions with at the summit a couple of weeks ago, there is no, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as I can see the will of the members, is that we will never be a tenant. We will always own the building that we're in. In terms of staff contracts, their contracts are that they have hybrid working and flexible working, which is what a lot of organisations offer to their staff. And my personal view, and it is just my personal view, is that we did go back and say that all staff have to come and work in this building constantly, that would be a retrospective step. It would actually make staff leave the organisation. It would also limit who we might employ at the organisation, because I've just had an inquiry from a company in New Jersey, in America, for a training course, and I can run that training course because I can do it over Zoom. So we've now got the technology which came out of the COVID situation, which enables those sorts of things to happen. It enables for us to support our staff in a more flexible way, which meets their lives and things like that. So there's no way I can see that changing. One of the things that we've got to look at is we've got to look at how we use the asset, and one of the things that I would like to come forward separately is in the summer is for all of us to have a discussion around what do we want our council to be in terms of how we work, the way that we work, and the buildings and the assets that we own. And that should be something that all members discuss and all members have an involvement in. So, yeah, there is no way that we're ever going to move out of a building and not have anywhere else to go. You know, and we need to ensure that we keep working flexibly with our staff so we keep them motivated. One of the things I talked about today with HR was we need to ensure that we're doing enough team building and ensuring that the teams get the opportunity to come back together so that we keep them motivated and we build that team spirit, because that's one of the things that maybe was a little bit lower in terms of staff survey. So yeah, we need to focus on that as a council.
Yeah, you can come back. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Obviously, it does explain it. My concern obviously was we have this building, and obviously if we start renting out every single space, there won't be space for staff. So I just want to make sure we're careful of what we're doing. Okay, thank you.
Councillor White, please.
Thank you, Mr. Trent. I mean, first I'd like to comment on what my colleague has just said, and I think we need to keep in line with the private sector. I know the private sector have found that teams are not gelling, they're not getting the cultural embedment that you get if you work as a team in person, and the culture's not going down. They're finding in the private sector the culture's not going down. So would the leader agree with me that we need to bed that in? Or take it into account, unless public sector is different to private. My questions are, the first one is nesting birds. Nobody will silence me asking things I've got a concern of. Would the leader agree with me that we should treat all nature with respect and should uphold all government guidance, particularly for nesting birds, as the nests are protected from the 1st of March? Or could the leader confirm that we do not put any importance on nesting birds whatsoever? My second question is tree preservation orders. Would the leader agree with me that we should protect all trees covered by tree preservation orders and we should not take very seriously any work done without permission? Does he further agree that all residents should be treated the same And if one woodland can be cleared and a 25-foot ride created with no permission, that everyone with a woodland order can do exactly the same. As I have been asked this question by lots of very angry residents. And the third one is, with enforcement, would the leader agree with me that all residents should be treated the same and that harm to residential properties should be at the highest harm level, and we should look into this in our authority? Thank you.
Thank you, Leader.
I fully support any action that we protect nesting birds. As somebody who studied environmental science, when I was young, the environment and nature is really, really important to me. And therefore we should be protecting that sort of thing and ensuring that landowners do not damage trees and hedges at the critical times of the year. I understand that with TPOs we need to ensure that they're enforced, and if we think that a tree that's going to be under threat from a development, that they are protected because they're important to our environment. And if someone does break enforcement, then it should be raised, and I know officers will look at any infringement of enforcement. And I know you've been sending email, and I've been reading every single one, Councillor White. I've not commented because I want to wait to see what officers say, because I'm not an officer, they're an officer, they know the cases and things like that. Similarly, this week I've raised an issue around an enforcement order. And enforcement is something that we do need to keep control of, and we need to ensure that we're resourcing it in the right way, and we're making sure that we take action against anybody who doesn't, who breaks rules and breaks conditions of planning.
Okay, they might just quickly come back. Well, I think we need to look into the first question again with the nesting birds, because I have a query, and nobody seems very bothered at Maldon District Council, so it's something I'd like the leader to look into for me and to respond, because this is a very serious issue. We must be seen to be consistent and to treat everybody, and I mean everybody, the same. Farmers and most landowners follow those rules, so we need to either enforce them or not enforce them at all. But we need to have clear, concise information and decisions being made, and I have concerns that this is not the case. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will. I've got, as I said, I've raised something with the enforcement team myself this week. So at the same time as me talking to them about that particular case, I will go through those things that you've raised.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So the Constitution allows for the questions to be answered in writing at a further point anyway, so to get more detail. So I think that would be the most advantageous way. Councillor Fluker, please.
Okay. Leader, just a couple of questions. The first one is that you never know what you're going to get asked, and if only I'd been asked about nesting birds by Councillor Morris, life would have been a lot easier. Two questions, Chairman, and I hope you indulge me. The first one is the leader just said that, and I'll just précis this, that basically we aren't moving from these premises. Chairman, there is a corporate project which involves us looking at moving, and I know that we've expended money on that. And I think that if the leaders decided that we're not going to do that, then I think that the Corporate Projects Working Group, or whatever it's now called, should be informed, and for the reasons why. If I can just take the leader back to his response to the comments made by the leader of the Liberal Democrats in relation to the budget. I didn't get an opportunity to question this during the minutes, and perhaps I should, and it might not be accurate. But leader, just to remind you, you did say that where appropriate, you were going to use Section 106 monies to support local healthcare. Now, I think that probably what you meant was in accordance with the conditions of 106 agreements. And I think, Leader, it's very, very important that we make sure that these are actually, these conditions are not only complied with, but they're quite clear. And Leader, just for your information, in Southminster, for example, it was agreed to, a 106 agreement was to support the new medical facility. Because there was no timeline for that, the £70,000 was used to digitise the records of the local health centre. Now, clearly that, we've got to find a way that wherever these 106 monies come forward, we can somehow or other proportion to a new healthcare facility. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Leader.
So I didn't say that we're not ever going to move out of these premises because because we don't know what the future will bring and what the future might happen. However, we need to look at this asset, and I know Councillor Fluker, you looked at this asset when you were leader as well, and we had lots of discussions at that particular time. What we need to ensure that we do is we don't fall into the trap that other councils have in terms of doing something really grand and then getting into debt and putting them into a financial situation and financial difficulty. So what I said earlier was that we will always own the building that we're in, whether it's here or somewhere else. We should never be a tenant because that is not sustainable for a local authority. What might happen, I don't know. We've been, I know that the premises have been talked about for a very long time. Probably people who've been in this chamber a long time will remember those conversations. In terms of Section 106, yes, it is allocated. However, in terms of the health Section 106, there is round about £500,000, which is not allocated to a specific thing. So if a situation arose where we might have NHS facilities in here, who knows, we might not, we might. There is £500,000 available that the NHS could use to assist in developing those services in an asset. That asset might not be ours, it might belong to somebody else's. So yes, some of that Section 106 is allocated to specific projects, but there's around about £500,000 which is allocated to health services in the Maldon district. And that's probably what I was referring to back in February.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pratt, we've got 3 minutes left on our time, so...
Leader, would you help with me over the coming months to compile a list of volunteers that will be worth giving a donation of £5,000 each? Up to £5,000. I mention this because the chairman asked me to represent the district to the High Sheriff's Award.
Yeah.
And the High Sheriff gave out a colossal amount of money to everybody in the Essex County. I mention this because in my parish of Southminster, no one was mentioned. No one was mentioned on the Dengie, and to my surprise, no one was mentioned for the whole of the Maldon district. I talked to the High Sheriff afterwards, and there is a form. We need to get our act together as a district, and I asked, could you help me compile a list that we could submit these people to try and get some donations to them? Thank you.
Thank you. Leader.
It is a shame that none of the bodies, charities, whatever within the Maldon district has access to the High Sheriff Fund. I think we need to probably do some PR on it and make sure our team publicises that with perhaps work with the High Sheriff in terms of how we publicise that and the way that we publicise that, so that people are aware that they can access that funding. Because it is a shame that there are lots of people, and I went to a charity last month in Great Totham, which deals with children who have got mental health issues, and they just received a grant from Persimmon Homes. So there are lots of charities, lots of bodies who are doing really, really good work and that aren't always recognised. So I think it is something that we should promote, and I'm happy to support that in any way that I can.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And we've used the 15 minutes allocated time, so thank you, members, and thank you, Leader, for the questions and answers. Agenda item 12, which is business by reason of special circumstances considered by the chairman to be urgent. I have none. We move on to agenda item 13, which is the exclusion of the public and press. And this is to resolve that under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 3 and 5 of Part 1, Schedule 12A of the Act, and this satisfies the public interest test. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you, members. Mr. Rogers, unfortunately, I have to ask you to leave. Thank you. And thank you for coming and thank